Hey there, Jared. How you
Hey,
doing
how's
today?
it going? I'm doing pretty good today.
Excellent. So, everybody, this is going to be a video for both of our channels. We're going to be talking about crystals, and we're going to talk about runes and magic, and some ideas as far as how you can use both together or either one separately in your magical or spiritual practices. So, you had a question for me, Jared?
Yeah, I know we talked about on our podcast we did
Mm-hmm.
how talking about the runes and using them in divination.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is how do you, I think, how did turning runes into using them for magic purposes? How did that become?
Yeah. So, for a spell. If I was going to use a rune for a spell, let's say I got my bag of runes here that I made. I might reach in. Let's say I want to manifest something today, and this you can choose the rune. You don't necessarily have to do this, but you say, okay, whatever rune I pick, I'm going to contemplate, and I'm going to cast it using magic in order to instill that knowledge in me or to learn from the rune directly. So casting a spell of knowledge. So let's just say I draw a rune and the rune is Isa. And now, nope, Lagos. This is Lagos. So Lagos is about flow. So it's basically just a line and then it has a hook on it.
Right.
It's all about flow. It's very water oriented rune. It's very circular oriented rune because you have a bunch of them and you might have a circle and then a bunch of them around. So let's say I draw that and then okay, I want to learn more about this rune. So what I would do is go to my uh, Futhark, A Handbook of Rune Magic by Edred Thorson. There we go. And I might go through here and I might find the rune. And whatever I find, I'm not going to find it right now, but whatever I find, I try to learn as many pictorial adjacencies between this rune and its manifestation in creation, its manifestation in the world. Since it's a very water and flowing oriented rune, I would put that at the center of a piece of parchment, and I would do that by using a quill and, a second, I'd be using a piece of parchment and I'd be using a quill. So, and then I'd be dipping that quill into dragon's blood ink. And then Lagos, I would write the rune at the center of a piece of parchment. And then maybe I would draw kind of an incomplete circle. And then that also increases its power because it's a very circular rune. And then I either would draw Lagos projecting, I draw a whole bunch of Lagoses with the dragon's blood ink projecting out of it. And then I can hold this up in front of me, I can tape it in front of me, and then I can meditate on Lagos. And then you have Lagos at the center, then you have a circle, then you have it projecting out. So your focus needs to be on the center, and it would attribute to this rune to have all of that stuff that I mentioned around it. And you focus on the center, you meditate, you look upon it, and then you try to block out all of your thoughts that come into your brain. You want something that you want a feeling, you want an experience. So when you're meditating on this rune, you want to experience it in the way that not necessarily through words, but through a sense of consciousness. And then once you get to that point where you're like, okay, I'm really consciously feeling this rune, you might allow some words to come into your mind. Like, what do I associate this feeling with? You start thinking about that as you're looking at the rune. What do I associate this with? What is this rune telling me? How can I instrument it in my life? And in order to kind of complete the spell of knowledge, you think about that for a while as you're looking at the rune. You light the parchment on fire, and then as it's burning, you might want to have something underneath the ashes can fall in. As it's burning, you watch it as it burns, and then in a way that rune is cast within your mind, and it connects to its external form, which is basically this. But so it's the destruction of the external presence of the rune for the indentation of that experience and of that rune within yourself. Now, not only can you do that, you can also use the rune just to make spells. So if I was going to draw another rune out of this bag, let's just see which one comes up when I dive right in here. So, Kenaz. Kenaz came up. So Kenaz is basically the rune it's a light bringing rune. It's the torch in the darkness. It's kind of like a gateway as well. It's the torch that leads you through a dark place. It can be a torch that is enlightenment in this materialistic world. So, you don't have to draw the rune like that, but you say, okay, I choose Kenaz. And then let's say you write Kenaz on the same piece of parchment. And then whatever you want to manifest, you have to think of how to ideographically interpret what you're trying to make happen. So let's say that you're trying to make Kenaz work for you and protect you. So it's not usually a rune of protection, but the runes are very fluid as long as you can figure out exactly how to understand Kenaz, the light and the darkness, to protection of yourself. That clarity that's around you once you see your immediate surroundings. That can be a protective force from Kenaz because you see anything that's trying to hurt you coming. So you might write that on a piece of parchment. Let's say that you don't use Dragon's Blood this time. So let's say you use it doesn't have to be this big, but let's say you use a lancet. So basically all you have to do is prick the end of a finger. I usually use my right ring finger right here. And then you might put Kenaz onto the piece of parchment. After you do that, you say variations of the word Kenaz. Say Kenaz, 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 Naz, Kenaz. Closing your eyes, thinking about that rune, thinking of that rune lighting your path and that torch protecting your surroundings, protecting you at that center of the surroundings because you can see all around you and you know what's coming. And then as you're meditating on this rune, you might say, Kenaz, protect me, let me see, and make my surroundings apparent to me wherever I go. And then you might also burn it. You might say, so mote it be. Then you burn the parchment. Or you might actually not even burn it at all. You might have that Kenaz written in your own blood or Dragon's Blood ink. Fold it up, put it in your pocket, put it in your wallet. It could be a sigil of that rune coming with you wherever you go. That rune having its power by you carrying it, not so much as you casting it, but you carrying it. So it can be a talisman in that way, as long as you go through the ritual of creating the talisman and your connection to it. Some people, they'll just write a rune, whatever, like Algiz, one of my favorite runes. I might write that on a piece of paper and not even do the ritual. And then I can fold it up as long as it's with my blood, as long as I understand the rune, fold it up, put it in my pocket, carry it with me. Now it's a talisman. But I cannot stress enough that you have to understand the rune before it can work for you. You have to understand, you have to do research. The Runic Handbook by Edred Thorson, or Futhark, A Handbook of Rune Magic. It's a great book. I tore this thing up, as you can see. It's a great book. And it's got a lot of magical suggestions in that. So just based on what I said so far, do you have any questions?
Yeah, so, I mean, is it just basically like manifesting, like I said, as in like, because for me when I use crystals and stuff, like I use them to focus my energy and then manifest, what comes from it. Same thing with a rune. You have, certain ones for certain meanings. You pull that wand and be like, okay, this is what I want to focus on. And then, drawing it just kind of creates that ritualistic symbolism of it. So then you can manifest that way. Is that kind of what it's?
Yeah. So I'll give an example. There's a lot of ways you can use the runes in magic, like a lot. You can do a sequence of runes. You might even carve runes onto a piece of bone, and then that can be a talisman as well. Also, there is ways to attack other people and destroy them with the runes. I've never done it, but you dig up the roots of a tree, you take a root of a tree, and then you carve the runes of you thinking of what you want to happen to somebody. It'll be a negative sequence of runes. It'll be a directing of all of your passion and all of the destruction of a person. And then you carve one rune after another. There's different formulas. And then you can either bury that again, you can burn it, or you can just carve it in and hold on to it, put it somewhere special. That magic itself, that rune, root magic is very effective if you want to attack somebody. It's also, I usually wouldn't use the roots of trees if I wanted to do something like a healing talisman or a healing spell for myself. So when I drew this, I have a picture of myself, right? I combined Algiz and I combined Berkana. And Algiz, very protective rune, and Berkana, a rune of growth, rune of connection to the earth. So these two runes together is basically a healing spell. You have to know the relationship between them, create the rune word, maybe write it on a picture of yourself, then that will basically manifest in your life. Since I've made this, I've healed quite a bit. So as long as you can focus your energy into the runes and not just just half-ass draw and be like, okay, the magic is done. If you can focus and you really focus on these runes as you're drawing something like that on a picture of yourself, then that will manifest, especially if you keep this around, if you keep it in front of you. That will make the runes continuously active because you're engaging with them in your consciousness. So I hope that answered a little bit. Is there another question you have, or did I not answer that question?
Yeah, it definitely answers the question of it. Because it sounds like, if once you have the understanding of it, can you do it like, I've seen some people take sigils and they kind of just draw it. They already subconsciously know the meaning of it, so they don't have to do too much focusing on it. Once they've, collected all the information that's in their head, the subconscious already knows it, so they just draw it out, and then they can just, put it somewhere and completely forget about it. The subconscious already is working it itself.
See, that's the side of magic that I've seen a lot. It's very hard to do, to completely forget about something, but it is very effective. So if you draw that sigil, let's say you bury it on your property. Let's say you put it under your bed where you can't find it, and you forget about it. That is effective magic, but it's all about when you're writing it. So when you're writing it, you have to completely understand it. You have to direct your energy into it. Otherwise, it's just going to be wasted paper or wasted whatever you put it on. That's my view upon it. It's if you're going to do that, you have to really be engaged when you're doing it. If you want to do something like, for instance, me writing that on a picture of myself, I can keep that around. I'm constantly fueling it by me engaging with it. But if I drew that upon my picture, I have to meditate on that picture of myself and about what I want to do and the runes that I'm combining, and then do it. So and focus on it while I'm doing it. So it's very important to either focus a bunch when you're creating something, or allow it to be more of a passive, continuous focus that fuels that for whatever purpose you want. So at this point, is there some crystals you want to talk about, man, before because I just wanted to give you plenty of time with crystals, because I'm really curious about that big orb that you have.
Yes, give me 2 seconds. I'm going to turn the light on. I just realized. There, now it's a lot better. I should have turned that on way before.
Yeah.
But, yes, this awesome Roman Chalcedony, quite expensive for that piece, but, that Roman Chalcedony is a really good upbringing energy. You can just kind of, for me, sometimes I'll just kind of hold on to it and just kind of focus on, the energy in the room, just, raising the vibrations of it. Kind of that same thing with the runes. Your intention's there, you're focusing, meditating on it, and you can just kind of feel the room just get, a lot lighter and everything else. It normally goes in my sacred room right now, but I have it, displayed. But I'll put it in the center of the room with clear quartz in all four corners, creating like a crystal grid. So my entire room has this awesome, high vibrational energy in it. So, nothing negative can be sit in that room, so it doesn't affect my workings with the crystals or any spell work that I do in that room. But that's my main purpose I use for that. There's a lot more uses for it. It just creates happiness and abundance in your life. You just focus on it. Same thing with meditating on it. But since it's just an orb, there's not much you can do with it. I mean, it's not, light, of course, so you can't do the same thing with just a couple towers like these.
How do you use those towers? And what kind of stone are they, or what kind of mineral?
Well, this one is an amethyst. It's a Mexican amethyst, and I have a rainbow fluorite here as well. The towers can be used as generators and crystal grids. You put them.
So when you say generator and crystal grid, I feel like a lot of people don't know what that is. How would you just basically describe it to people that don't know what these things are? How would you explain a generator and a crystal grid?
Well, a generator with a crystal grid is kind of the same way with a generator for a house. It gives it the energy that, for everything to work, your fridge and your stove, all that stuff to work. A generator for a crystal grid will, when you're doing crystal grids, you have your intention crystal that you're holding on to, and you like kind of pull from the other crystal, the generator, and you put the intention in each other crystals around it. So you may have multiple different crystals or gemstones for, like, let's say abundance. So, might be, rainbow fluorite, something green, or pyrite, which is another good one to use for generators for abundance. And then you have other, some people have the thought of, they're not really specific. This doesn't have a specific meaning. It can just be whatever they want it to be, and that's fine too. So a lot of green stones, even though they may not be for, abundance, that's what they use them for. So it's like, I can take this, pull out the abundance energy, and put it in all the other stones, and it just kind of creates a power grid. Just like we have electricity, we have towers and stuff that brings electricity into our homes, so everyone in the area has energy. It's this big old power grid, but just a smaller little piece for yourself, or abundance for like your town or the world, so we can be out of poverty or whatever you need it for. But
that's interesting for sure.
Yeah, it's a really neat concept. I learned about that maybe 5 years ago, and I was like, okay, that's really neat. So I started doing those. I have a few pictures of those that I might even add onto this later when I edit. But one of the big things I use crystals for is for healing, especially in my Reiki practice. I have little stones. I don't have them with me right now, but they have the chakras on each one of them. And what I do is I have my client is laying down on their back, and then I place them on their chakra centers on their body, so that I can then focus the energy that I pull from the higher power into each stone to help, with that chakra, balance it, or, whatever issue they may be having at that time, to help, heal that and make that process a lot easier for them, make it more comfortable for them. I did one time, I had a lady that came to me. She was getting ready to go back to the doctor because she's had cancer, and she had to go get like a colostomy bag. So she came to me and asked for my help. So I took the stones I had, especially in that area, from like the solar plexus down to the sacral chakra. I put those both there. And then I had, I took clear quartz. I put that towards the head, not only for the crown chakra, but to help like clear the energy through the body. Because if you clear that from a chakra, that can help relieve that pain or whatever it might be. And then I'll take a darker stone and put it towards the feet, and that helps pull any of that negative energy that's inside the body, and heal any injuries or illnesses that are going on in the body.
Mm-hmm.
But the really neat thing was, and it really kind of shocked me because I was still in the learning of, had little Reiki training.
Yeah.
But I did this, had the whole session, probably took me 20 minutes, didn't do a long one. The next day, she was supposed to go, because I live in Illinois, she had like a 2-hour drive to like Chicago, and she went to the doctor. She's getting a colostomy bag that day, and she calls me later on that day, and she says the doctor told her she doesn't need to have it, at least not right now. He's not sure what changed, but she was very thankful for me to do that to her, because last time she spoke to a doctor, she had to have a colostomy bag. She was ready to go get it, and she was devastated that didn't happen. But for her to come to me, and I was using the crystals for the Reiki purposes, she didn't have to have a colostomy bag, and I think still to this day she has not had a colostomy bag.
That's wonderful, man. So at this point, I think we should go into like doing a part 2, kind of like because like we hit kind of like 20 minutes. So I think that's a really good part 1. Do you want to do a part 2 after this?
Yeah, we can do that, definitely.
Excellent. All right, thanks everybody for watching. You will see us not too long from now in part 2.